Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 3 of the Christmas lights ornament tutorial. This is the Christmas lights ornament that we are making. It is so cute with all its colorful bulbs. And today we're going to be making the unit called Red Round Bulb. If you haven't done parts 1 and 2 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have those listed down below in the description. So once you finish this one, you can go and do those too. All right, so we just have a few materials to get ready. So let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's video are all Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque dark cranberry, opaque chartreuse AB, opaque yellow AB, opaque delphinium, silver lined crystal, and white pearl AB. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to call this red, light green, yellow, blue, silver, and white. We're also going to need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire in the color crystal, and I like the 4-pound thread. You can use 6-pound thread also if that's what you prefer. And I like the size 10 beading needle, but if you only have a size 12, that would work too. For implements, I like to hold on to my thread with my long nose pliers, and I cut my thread with scissors. And then I'm going to show you how I use the fire method to end the tail today in today's video. Alrighty, so let's thread our needle with 3 feet of thread and then we can get started. Okay, so I have threaded my needle and now I'm going to pick up my first 3 beads, which are all red beads. So take your 3 red beads and pull them down to the bottom of your thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now we are going to make a square knot. So cross over on the top and then pull your tail through. And then cross over on the top again and pull your tail through. So now you have what looks like a little snowman. Now I'm going to put 2 fingers in the bottom loop and I'm going to pull the tail until that top loop is a little knot. Now we're going to take our tail thread and singe the end. Where did my lighter go? Here it is. Okay, so I'm not going to touch the end to the flame, but I'm going to get it super duper close and it's going to melt the tip. Just like that. It just needs to be the teensiest of little beads. Now I'm going to put my 2 fingers back in my loop and I'm going to tug on the long thread while I'm twisting the loop so that that little knot on the end of the tail meets the long thread. Just like that. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and pull the thread until the beads turn into a little triangle. Now I'm going to try to make that knot move over to look like it's coming out of one of the beads. And to do that, just tug the long thread until that little knot shifts over. And now we're ready to pick up 2 red beads. It looks like we're coming out of this bead, so we're going to sew through the next bead, the one that's furthest from the knot. And we're going to try to get those 2 new beads to sit right on top of their buddies. Alrighty, let's pick up 2 more red beads. And we're coming out of this bead. Let's sew through the next bead. Once again, trying to get those beads to sit right on top of their buddies. Let's pick up 2 more red beads. We're coming out of this bead. We're going to sew through the next, and we're also going to sew through its buddy. So sewing through 2 beads means that we are stepping up into position to start the next row. And this is what you should have by now. So we've completed row number 1, we've completed row number 2. Now we're going to start row number 3. Let's pick up 2 silver beads and sew through the next. Now let's pick up 1 red bead, and we're coming out of this bead right here. We're going to skip the bead that's set down, and we're going to sew through the bead that's poking up. That is our up bead. Now let's pick up 2 red beads and sew through the next. And pick up 1 red bead, skipping the down bead and sewing through the up bead. Let's pick up 2 red beads and sew through the next. Let's pick up 1 red bead. This is the last bead in row 3. We're going to skip the down bead and sew through the up bead, and we're also going to sew through the bead right below that one. So we've sewn through 2 beads, which means we have stepped up, and we're ready to start row number 4. Let's start by picking up 2 silver beads and sew through the next. Pick up 1 red, sew through the up bead, pick up 1 red and sew through the up. We're starting to see our triangle now. Each corner of the triangle has 2 beads. So we're at the corner. Let's pick up 2 red beads and sew through the next. One red and sew through the up. 1 red and sew through the up. We're at the corner again, so let's pick up 2 red beads and sew through the next. 1 red and sew through the up. And our last bead in this row is 1 red, and we're going to sew through the last 2 beads, stepping up. And now we are starting row number 5. Let's start by picking up 2 silver beads and sew through the next. 1 silver bead, 1 red 1 red, 2 red beads, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 2 red beads, 1 red, 1 red, and 1 silver. This is the last bead in this row, so let's sew through the last 2 beads. And now you should have what looks like this. Alrighty, starting row 6, let's start with 2 white beads. Always making sure that they're sitting on top of their buddies. 1 silver, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 2 red beads, oops, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 at the corner, let's pick up 2 red beads, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, and 1 silver. This is our last bead, so let's sew through 2 beads, and now we should have what looks like this. Starting row number 7, let's start with 2 white beads, 1 white, 1 white, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 at the corner, let's pick up 2 white, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 2 white beads, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 white. Sewing through 2 beads. And now we're ready to start row number 8. Let's start with 2 white beads. One white, one light green, one white, one red, one red, one white, at the corner 2 white beads, one white, one red, one red, one red, one red, one white, two white, one white, one red, one red, one white, one light green, and one white. Sewing through 2 beads. And now we're ready to start row 9. Let's start with 2 white beads, one white, one white, one light green, one white, one white, one white, one white, one blue, and one white. One white, one white, one red, one red, one red, one white, one white, at the corner let's pick up 2 white beads, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 light green, 1 white, and 1 red. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we can start row number 10. Let's start with 2 white beads, 1 white, 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 1 white. At the corner, let's pick up 2 white beads, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white. Oops, I missed my bead. 1 white, 1 white, 1 white. At the corner, 2 white beads, 1 white, 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 and 1 white. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row 11. Let's start with 2 white beads, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 light green, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 2 white beads, 1 white, 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 1 white. At the corner, we'll pick up 2 white beads, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one light green, one white, one white, and one white. Sewing through the last 2 beads, and now we are ready to start row number 12. These last few rows sure have a lot of white in them, don't they? Alrighty, let's start row 12 with 2 white beads, one white, one white, one white, one white, one light green, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white. At the corner, 2 white beads, one white, 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 2 white beads, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one light green, one white, one white, 1 white, and 1 white, sewing through the last 2 beads, and that completes our 12 rows. Now we get to add our connection rows. If this is the first triangle that you've done with me, peyote style, making this ornament, we have to connect our units together, and in order to do that, some of the sides are going to have connecting beads and some are not. In this case, this side is going to have connection beads, this one is going to have connection beads, but this side is not. So let's start by capping off our corners by adding 1 light green bead to this top corner, and that turns it into a point. And now we're going to add all white beads all the way down. So 1 white, 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 oops, don't want to get our thread stuck, hooked on anything, and 1 white. Alrighty, so we're at the next corner, so let's cap this corner with 1 white bead, turning it into a point, and now we're going to do 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 yellow, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white. Now we're at our third corner. Let's cap it by adding 1 white bead, turning it into a point. And now at this point, I like to turn my triangle over, and we're going to weave through beads, zigzag a couple of times, and then we are going to cut our thread. So sew up, I like to sew up these beads right here because they're just so easy to get into and sew through. So right up this quadrant line, I'm going to sew through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now I'm going to do what I call a zigzag. And what we're doing is we're strengthening this bead that we just put on, our very last bead. We're making sure it's secure and it won't get loose and fall out. So we're coming out of the top of this red bead. Let's sew in the opposite direction, down the white bead right next to it. And then we're going to sew up that white bead right next to that one. Now I'm going to sew up 1 more bead up the next row, and up the next row 1 more bead, and then I'm going to zigzag again. I'm coming out of the top of this white bead. I'm going to sew down the red bead right next to it, and sew up the red bead right next to that one. Then I'm going to sew up 1 more bead and 1 more And now I feel like this is very secure, so I'm going to take my long nose pliers and hold onto my thread while I take my scissors, and I'm going to get as close as possible to the bead without cutting the bead. And I'm just going to snip off that thread. So now we have completed our red round bulb triangle. We only need one of these, so congratulations, you've finished this, and I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.